Hello and welcome to Weapons and Warfare for Straight Arrow News. I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. Just ahead on this week's episode, ground vehicle modernization. The Army was talking about it for years, but we're finally starting to see the needle move. We check in with Army leadership as they work to make the XM30 a reality and bring the M10 Booker online. Plus, the race for space on board the collaborative combat aircraft is on. In our Weapon of the Week, we take a look at SRC's Ghost Mantis to see what it's bringing to the fight. But first, some headlines you may have missed. Next month marks the third year of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, despite President Trump's campaign promise to end the conflict before taking office. As that anniversary looms, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced Ukrainian forces captured North Korean soldiers fighting with Russians in the Kursk region. Zelensky's statement follows new Ukrainian attacks in Kursk aimed at holding ground taken in August. The subsequent Russian counterattack stretched Ukrainian forces thin, causing significant casualties and the recapture of more than 40% of the territory, prompting some in the Pentagon press corps to ask if Russia gained the upper hand.
What we're seeing on the battlefield is that, especially in the east, Russia has made some incremental gains. Of course, it's very tough fighting, as well as in the Kursk region as well. But when you talk about the upper hand, of course, tactically, again, other than those incremental gains, what you're seeing strategically is that, again, Russia has not achieved any of its strategic objectives that it set for itself almost 3 years ago.
Of the first two North Koreans captured, Ukraine says one had no documents, while the other carried a Russian military ID. One claimed he was misled into thinking he was going to Russia for training. Estimates suggest 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean troops were sent to fight alongside Russian forces, primarily in infantry roles. China recently launched its first Type 076 amphibious assault ship, named Sichuan. As part of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, the Sichuan bolsters China's ability for operations far from the Chinese mainland. The ship will undergo various tests, including equipment commissioning and at-sea trials. China's Navy is improving its amphibious combat abilities and previously launched its first 075 class ship, the Hainan, in 2019, which entered service in April 2021, along with two other Type 075 ships. In a not unrelated story, earlier this month, Taiwan conducted a series of military drills amid concerns over potential defense budget cuts due to political disputes. In central Taiwan, the Air Force conducted a drill with ground crews servicing Taiwanese-made fighter jets, preparing for quick takeoffs to intercept potential threats. A Taiwanese military spokesperson said their crews can be airborne in just a couple of minutes. Ground staff also demonstrated the PAC-3 air defense system, and anti-submarine exercises are set to take place off Goshan, Taiwan's largest port and a crucial area for China if it tries to resupply troops. When it comes to iconic military vehicles, the U.S. Army can claim its fair share. From the Willys Jeep and the Sherman tank to the Humvee and every iteration of the M1 Abrams, every kid that ever wanted to play Army had a favorite.
Gentlemen, this is the EM-50 Urban Assault Vehicle. Real beauty, Colonel.
But time, just like the Army, marches on, and vehicles that once ruled the battlefields of American conflicts have to give way to the next generation of potential icons. It's an issue Army leadership has been addressing for years, and while things do seem to move slow, they are moving, and that's the subject of this week's debrief. Amid all of the eye candy on display at the 2024 AUSA annual meeting, there were a series of panels and roundtables tackling the very serious business of modernizing the Army for future conflicts. One of those discussions was centered on the Army's push to bring its next generation of ground vehicles to the fight. During a panel on that very subject, two vehicles dominated the discussion: the XM-30 and the M10 Booker. The XM-30 mechanized infantry combat vehicle has long been viewed as a replacement for the 40-year-old Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. On the drawing board since 2014, there were problems bringing the project to fruition. Potential competitors viewed the program's timeline and strict objectives as unrealistic, since the burden of development costs largely fell on their shoulders. As a result, many defense contractors eventually opted out of participation. But in early 2020, the Army announced it would relaunch the program, taking on a greater share of the funding responsibilities as well. According to Colonel Jeff Durand, project manager for the XM-30, things are finally coming together to allow the project to move forward.
The vendors are on schedule to deliver their first prototypes within 22 months. And there's no indication that they're going to be unable to do that. So if I was going to shake my magic 8-ball, what I would say would come up is the outlook looks good.
One reason why things seem to be back on track for the XM-30 is a DoD-wide push for digital engineering as a first step in bringing the Army's requirements to potential builders.
It's been eye-opening. It's a learning curve, certainly, to adapt to new methods. Our vendors have been great partners in this and have jumped into the deep end of the pool with us, fully committed to it. And it truly is a partnership that we're experiencing with both contractors as we evolve internally and have to retrain our workforce, and as the vendors see this space as well. So it's been a very insightful and eye-opening experience the last couple of years.
In June 2023, the Army selected American Rheinmetall and General Dynamics Land Systems to advance the project based on three primary criteria: a tracked vehicle equipped with a hybrid electric drive, an unmanned turret featuring either a 50mm autocannon or a 30mm turret that can be upgraded to the larger caliber, and a reduced crew of 2 while allowing space for 6 infantrymen. While the XM-30 remains in the developmental stages, the M10 is already a reality.
Identified bunker. Fire.
The Booker, as it's known, is a modern armored vehicle designed for mobility, protection, and firepower. It rides on tracks and features advanced armor effective against small arms fire and IEDs. And even though it may look like a tank, Colonel Kevin Bradley, director of the Army's Next Generation Combat Vehicles cross-functional team, was quick to point out it is not.
It's mobile protected firepower. It's designed to support squads. Primary focus is to open holes in buildings, to take out bunkers and help them to accomplish their task in both LSCO and an urban fight. Obviously with the 105 cannon, it does have capability to defend itself in that and can be used in that role against enemy armor if that was something that organization was facing. But it's part of the formation, not designed or intended as a tank-on-tank engagement.
But don't let that distinction fool you. The M10 packs a punch. Equipped with a remote weapon station, it can mount various armaments, supporting infantry operations by transporting troops while also providing effective fire support. The Army took delivery of the first M10 a little less than a year ago, and this past May, it issued a solicitation for full-rate production. All told, the Army is planning on buying 504 M10s, all of which will be allotted to light divisions in the active duty and National Guard. The 82nd Airborne Division will become the first unit equipped when 33 M10s enter Fort Liberty motor pools in late fiscal year 2025.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
While the race to secure the Air Force contract for the collaborative combat aircraft is only starting to heat up between General Atomics and Anduril, there is another race being run. That's a metaphorical sprint among a host of smaller contractors looking to get their tech on board whatever platform the Air Force ultimately chooses. One of those companies is SRC, a not-for-profit research and development firm that's hoping one of their latest projects will make the cut. It's called the Ghost Mantis, and it's our weapon of the week. With a promotional video looking like something out of the latest FPV video game, SRC's Ghost Mantis makes an impression. Tucked inside the nose of a CCA mock-up teamed with an F-35 and F-15, the multifunction RF system goes to work.
So the first thing is all of these platforms, both red platforms and blue platforms, their platforms and our platforms, all have sensors on them, right? And those sensors listen to the battlefield, right, and try to make sense of what's going on in the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So if we can get inside of those sensors and we can cause confusion in those sensors, we can cause the adversary's situational awareness to degrade, and we can start to force them to expose vulnerabilities, and then we can exploit. And that's really the goal.
Retired Air Force Colonel Dave Toomey is SRC's Assistant VP for Business Development. He says the company listened to what Air Force leadership wants from a cost and performance perspective when developing the Ghost Mantis.
So we took a step back and say, how do we give them single-digit million capability that can be game-changing to keep these platforms affordable? Because the problem has been in the past, we started with attritable platforms, they got gold-plated and nobody could afford them. So we said we're not going to go down that path. We're going to make it affordable, and we're going to make it so anybody else can take advantage of the technology and not lock it down.
Toomey went on to tell us while the primary goal is to get on board the CCA, it's not SRC's only target.
So Ghost Mantis is focused on the U.S. market and the international market, mainly Five Eyes. The platform will fly at the end of this calendar year, and it'll go into more flight tests next year. And so we've got customers that we're talking to on both sides, multiple different platforms.
And not just winged platforms. SRC has also explored putting Ghost Mantis on drones the size of what the Defense Department has acquired for its Replicator initiative. No word yet from SRC on any confirmed buyers. In December, we told you about a merger between a couple of companies whose work we've profiled here on Weapons and Warfare. And now we're hearing from one of the main players in that deal, and that's the subject of this week's Comms Check. We're talking about AeroVironment, a defense contractor that's been around for a little more than half a century, and its merger with DC-based startup Blue Halo. I recently had a chance to visit with Blue Halo's CEO, Jonathan Moneymaker, and asked him about the all-stock deal worth $4.1 billion.
I think what you're looking at is really strength on strength. When we started having conversations with AeroVironment, the fit was just extremely natural, similar DNA, similar passion for the mission, similar agility in being able to innovate and deliver. The pedigree of advanced manufacturing that they've instilled across their organization for systems, whether they be their drone portfolio or switchblades, I think is really just a match made in heaven. So now when you have both sides of that coin, you're really looking at capitalizing on two fantastic organizations that really were solving the very similar problem from different aspects. And now are really, finding that new paradigm of what it means to be the leading disruptor in our field together, with really no overlap.
AeroVironment is a leader in drone manufacturing, with their Switchblade 600 loitering munition being selected for Tranche 1 of the DoD's Replicator initiative. And in June of last year, the U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command Aviation and Missile Center, yes, that's the full name, selected Blue Halo as one of two vendors for the development of the next generation counter-uncrewed aerial system missile.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, that's going to just about do it for us this week at Weapons and Warfare. I want to remind everyone about our social media feeds and suggest you give us a follow and help us spread the word about the show. For my wrap this week, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about perspective. The United States swore in a new president this week, and for half the country, it's not their guy who won. Sort of like 4 years ago, when the other half of the country thought the new president taking office meant the end of everything. But it wasn't, and it isn't. I have 3 kids. The oldest is 16, the youngest is 2. I took the oldest to her first job interview last week, and we're teaching the youngest it's best to go potty in the potty. The point is, their lives are not over. Their lives are just beginning, and that knowledge helps me keep perspective. There are all sorts of things happening all over the world on which I have no influence. But in my corner of the universe, in my circle, there are people I love and whose lives I influence every day. Instead of yelling into the ether about things I can't control, my time is much better spent with them, doing whatever we happen to be doing in that moment. President Trump represents a lot of change. Some folks are very happy about it, some are not, just like it was 4 years ago, and 8 years ago, and so on and so on. Maybe someday we'll learn anger at an outcome doesn't change the outcome. But some quality time spent with a loved one, that can change everything. So, whether you're in the half of the country that's upset about the election, or the other half of the country that's very happy about it, as we embark on the next 4 years, try to keep things in perspective. Control what you can control and trust that we'll find our way, just as we found our way through the turbulence of the 1960s and various challenges of the 70s and early 2000s. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics artist Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson, with Straight Arrow News, signing off.